Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm sat across from a man who's getting six-pack abs by taking a 1-hour nap every day. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, a man who sleeps in the plank position. One of your little-known skill sets is that, you can sleep in the plank.
That's a good one. I like that.
Thanks. I told him one that I was going to do, but, he never knows. These are always real reactions. And Garrett is really turning into the talent step by step here on the podcast. He's refusing to do certain things now, so there's a little bit of angst here.
There's some push and pull here, and Nick's had an opportunity to fix some equipment, and he's not making it a priority. So I've helped him make it a priority.
No, you're just being a punk, but that's fine. Yeah, whatever you think. This is where a difference of meaning is a fun thing. We talked about troubleshooting last week. I need to apply that to my colleague on the co-host on the podcast. All right. Today is a very interesting deep dive.
It's been a few weeks since we did a deep dive.
Yeah, like raise your awareness, things that you're probably not thinking about that may be hiding in plain sight or you've never even thought about before. We are focusing on timing. And time and chance happen to everyone, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it says in Ecclesiastes. And timing is one of those things, man. It's the most important thing, right? I'll tell you what, let's look at a little example. In January 24th, 2013, there was a company that was launched called Vine. Yeah. Some people may remember Vine. It was actually bought by Twitter before it launched in 2012. And
Twitter is making a return to video, by the way.
Well, yeah, they basically paid a bunch of money for something that didn't work. Thanks for spoiling the story, man. Yeah. But Vine, if you don't know what Vine is, Vine was 6-second videos. And it was basically like TikTok way before TikTok. And people were not equipped yet to be thinking about video. And so Vine launched, and then it died in January of 2017 and was completely discontinued.
It was killed by Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, well, exactly. But that's because people were more like, oh, look at these pretty pictures. And they weren't so much concerned about the 6-second video.
Yeah, and Vine didn't have, they didn't have the social interaction and the algorithm process that Instagram had to promote people and increase engagement. They left it up to the creators to create engagement.
Right.
And so if creators weren't doing a great job, then engagement on the platform that month went down and they didn't know how to do their part.
Right. And I do also think that there was a few other things in it. And I didn't do a deep dive into Vine, but I'm thinking about they had a great product, right? I mean, they had a right concept.
Yeah, they missed some things, but they were also an example of too early. It's not just that they didn't have the algorithm. It's that a lot of that was invented by Instagram. Mm-hmm. Instagram had to innovate to keep up.
Right.
And so where Vine was the market leader for a short amount of time, and they weren't thinking about that stuff, versus Instagram had a little bit more weight behind them, and they were saying, how do we take people's attention? But they're not the only ones that have been really early. Just some of the ones that I can think about. You might not know this story, Nick. I think this is one of the great early stories in technology. Everyone knows the iPad, right? The Apple iPad came out in 2010. Did you know that Microsoft launched a tablet in 2001?
No, I did not.
Steve Jobs in there, and that's back when he was still leading the company. He said, this is the future of computers. In 5 years, everyone will have one of these. It was their big deal.
So Apple launched it or Microsoft?
No, Microsoft in 2001 launched a tablet and said, this is the deal.
Oh, okay.
Everyone's going to want this. Everyone's going to have these. And it was a massive flop. They lost a bunch of money on it. They were totally right. They just didn't sell it correctly.
Right.
And what they didn't sell, really, they're not selling it correctly. Again, this is a lot of Microsoft's problem. So they didn't have the software for it. They didn't have mobile specific apps. iPad launched with a new operating system and a platform and all of that. They were very early. Another great early. You probably never even heard of this one, a guy that I look up to a lot. He's brilliant, and everyone has stories like this. Mark Andreessen, in the early 2000s, had Loud Cloud. It's cloud software and cloud computing before anyone knew what cloud was. People weren't familiar with the term cloud until 2013, 2014. Yeah. And Mark Andreessen developed corporate and they had a retail plan of cloud computing, right? And it just completely failed. No one knew what it was. No one understood it. I mean, technology companies didn't understand cloud, and they were trying to take they had to convert it to a data center operation. but even guys like Mark Andreessen, who founder of Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most successful venture companies, not only have they had a lot of great successes, they know how to pick successes. Even he was early once. And then one of the biggest one, I'd say the biggest one people know is everyone knows Google, right? Google wasn't first. They weren't second. They weren't third. They weren't 10th. They weren't 20th. There were dozens of search engines before Google. Google was not invented until 1998.
Yeah.
You have, let's see, Ask Jeeves was like 95 or 96. Yahoo was 94. AOL launched as a company in 1985.
What a company.
Right?
Yeah.
Google didn't launch until 1998. And the only reason they beat everyone, like Ask Jeeves developed some of the big search engine technologies. They developed semantic searching, which was different than lexical searching. It's not about the words. It's about the thought, right? Like if you looked for a picture, if you searched like waving, they're not going to give you a picture of ocean waves.
Right.
That's semantic searching versus lexical searching. They developed that technology, not Google. They also developed which is still like some of Google's secret sauce today, the hyperlink-based search engine to rank a website based upon how many hyperlinks it has out there. Ask Jeeves developed all that, right? You know what? Google beat everybody. They were the fastest. Not the fastest to market.
Yeah,
they were the fastest search engine.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what do people want? Internet is about it's to make people's lives easier. Like, people want it now, and so Google could just give you a response in milliseconds. Right? If you go way back, I know you remember this. Back at the beginning, they had things on their website that would tell you like this response was generated for you in 1.3 seconds.
Yeah, they still have that.
Yeah,
if you look at the top in little gray, you just don't pay attention to it anymore.
Interesting.
And it tells you how many results as well.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, but like that's how they pushed themselves in the beginning, because a lot of these other search engines would take forever to query.
Yeah,
and so Google beat. They weren't early. They beat all the guys that were early, and they figured out what everyone wanted. So, anyways, a lot of technology examples there of timing. It's not always about being first. It's not the early bird that gets the worm. There are some things that we can do to make sure that we hit the ball, to make sure that our timing is accurate, because it's not just having a good swing, but you got to swing at the right time.
Yeah, and you're going to some baseball analogies. What's fun for all you folks that aren't watching on YouTube's is Garrett just did all that stuff off the top of his head. So, like, I was looking at your phone. I'm like, does he have notes? No, he has a text to God knows who on his phone. And he's just doing this off the top of his head. So that was really my enjoyment of all that stuff. So well done, man. I had to look up the Vine thing, but, whatever. Good job. So you did touch on golf and baseball. And I think where people see timing a lot, and particularly I'll say more in baseball, because in golf, A, I'm not a golfer, but B, the ball stays still. Whereas in baseball.
Yeah, in golf, timing really is such a big thing. There's a lot of fundamentals to golf and technique. But really, you do still have to have timing with your hands, because you can swing the club the right way. You can do all of the right things, and you do them in the right order, but you also got to do them with the right momentum, which order and momentum together create that timing. And when you see people's timing is off, they're doing all the right things, but it's just not working.
Yeah.
Right. And that's really like, we'll get into this a little bit more later, but that's one of the ways that we know, like, man, maybe I have a timing issue.
Yeah.
I know I'm doing all the right things, but it's just not working. If you're not out of order, if you're doing things in the right order and it's still not working, you might have a timing problem.
Right.
Baseball, though, is so many people have played baseball, or at least played baseball when they're young. And even if you haven't played, you can just play along with us here for a second. That in baseball, there's specific swing technique. You got to be able to read the ball, all of that, but it is about timing to put that bat on the ball. You can have the best swing. You can be Sammy Sosa on the juice and have all the power, but if you got the wrong time, and that's, we don't have to go down that road, but that's why like all the juice stuff with baseball was so stupid, because being juiced up doesn't mean you have timing.
No, you still can't barrel a ball. Yeah, for sure.
Those guys were strong. They had some extra strength, but they could put the bat on the ball like nobody's business. And that is about timing. It's not about not just knowing what to do, but when to do it. And it's doing it at the right time. And it's also just, thinking about last year on our leaders trip, some of the guys playing kickball. We won't name any names here.
Yeah.
But, not everyone's the same caliber of athlete.
This is our men's group at church, and we played kickball. And
we got like some professional athletes out there, and we got some guys that are, professional in the corporate world.
There you go.
And didn't play sports.
Correct.
Roll them the kickball, and they kicked, and then the ball crossed the plate.
Yeah. You don't want to be a swing and miss in kickball. It's
if you've ever played like men's slow pitch softball, you see this guys like grew up playing baseball and they're used to ripping, an 85 mile per hour baseball. And the guy throws the softball slow pitch and he throws it and you wait and then you swing.
Yeah.
And it's so much different than baseball where you're, from the time that ball is leaving the pitcher's hand, you're beginning the swing.
Yeah.
But I say all that to say, timing is also one of those things that'll make you look the most foolish.
Yeah.
Right? Like you watch a guy swinging at a baseball, and if he's got good timing and he's just struggling with a little bit of hand-eye coordination or technique, he doesn't look near as bad as think about that, a guy just missing the ball but has good timing versus the guy who like great technique, great power, and he swings and the ball crosses the plate a half second later. It's like, dude, can you see?
Yeah.
So timing is really important, and timing it's the extra element once you understand order, once you understand fundamentals to help make it happen. And we live in a fast-paced world where timing is very important.
Yeah, and timing really impacts all areas of your life. We're going to focus today specifically on 3 big ones that you can fit a lot of different scenarios into, and those 3 areas are physical, financial, and social. So that's a really broad range because there's a lot of things that fall into that, and we did want to show how.
Yeah,
you can
we just
apply
talked
this.
about physical timing, but we're going to connect the other 2 as well.
Yeah, big time.
What are some ways that you're struggling with timing?
Well, yeah, that's a good point, G. Let's look at some hallmarks of bad timing. Before we do, though, one thing I do want to say, because timing is such an important thing for seizing and making the most of opportunities, we always like to cover mindset, not just how-tos.
It's good.
You have to have a prerequisite of this is you have to be opportunity minded. And what I mean by that is if you're not thinking opportunity, if you're not looking for it, like there's this great thing.
Why be in the batter's box if you don't want to hit a baseball?
Well, exactly. And that's the challenge of this. So like if we say we're going to go play baseball, everybody goes, okay, I'm trying to hit the ball. But in life, it's like, what are the rules? What game are you playing? Yeah. It's a lot harder to define the rules and understand when you're in the batter's box, which is why I'm saying you have to be opportunity minded. It's not the ability to seize an opportunity. It's the ability to see an opportunity that really counts. And so if you're not looking, you're never going to see them. And how am I defining opportunity? I am defining opportunity. This is my own definition, not our beloved Webster's. But I'm saying it's when 2 or more motivations align. So that is a really key, in my opinion, definition because it's not an opportunity if I'm trying to force someone to buy something that they have no interest in, right? Mm-hmm. Very simple example. Whereas if I know that Garrett is in the market for something and I happen to have it to sell, okay, now we can talk opportunity. And you could apply that type of thinking to any situation.
Just bringing this back to baseball.
Man,
right?
You love baseball this week.
I'm
that.
I'm just bringing it back to the physical analogy. You got a pitcher that wants to strike out a batter.
Right.
And you got a batter that wants to hit a home run.
For sure.
And we got 2 motivations that are going to collide for an opportunity.
Exactly.
Now, that's not necessarily, that is like most sports, there's only one winner.
Right.
But you're talking about in business where everyone can win.
Well, yeah.
But either way, in both situations, it's motivations aligning.
Yeah.
That pitcher wants the opportunity to strike you out, and that batter's looking for a pitcher to throw him the ball.
Yeah, and the real winner in that analogy is baseball, and the fans. So there you go, friends. We're gonna wrap up there. What a fun, friendly podcast. Okay, so let's go in. First of all, like we say, we like to identify when you've gotten it wrong. So hallmarks of bad timing. The very first one, G.
This is
it's like the whole
this
of our
puts
podcast.
You in the losing category and just about everything we talk about here, but it connects well to this too.
Literally everything. I don't know that there's ever a time that we think this is a positive thing, is if it's all about you.
Yep.
You say it all the time, and that is bad timing. Think about when you've made a bad investment, when you've asked out that girl that had no interest in you, or you've gone and made a fool of yourself. Chances are you were focused 100% on you. Like, oh, I really need to make this much money, or oh man, I want to go do this. Well, you're going to be very unaware of some other things. Like we said, opportunities, motivations aligning. If you're only aware of your own motivations, chances are you might be in for some pain.
One of Pastor Keith's leadershipologies is you can't hit if you don't swing.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't swing when you're ready. You swing when the moment's ready.
Yes, good.
You have to be ready for when the moment's ready. That's timing. And if you make it about you, and this is, we'll connect this to the physical, to the financial, to the social. People do this in the financial, like, oh, I'm ready to invest. It's a horrible time. You think it's the right time because you're ready.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean it's the right time to invest. You think you're ready to swing. Well, the ball's not there yet. Right? Baseball isn't about the batter. Who's holding the ball?
Right.
Pitcher is.
Yeah.
You have to hit the ball when the pitcher's ready, not when you're ready.
Yeah. No, that's good, G. Second one, and this is this will sound like, man, I'm doing everything right, but things aren't just going the way they're not. Things aren't happening the way they should. So these are emotional things. These are emotional indicators. When you have impatience, entitlement, and anger, that is the hallmark of bad timing, right? And you just touched on it. The investment one is one that I think a lot of people can relate on. It's like, I got this money to invest. Like I need to invest it, and so you just go ahead and dive into a stock, not realizing that there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a recession around the corner that you've actually heard a lot about, but in this moment you're ignoring because it's about you.
You're so hyped because now you got money to put in the market, and you're obviously new if you feel this way.
And then when it goes down, what's the story you tell? Oh man, I can't believe, that was completely out of my control. Yeah. I mean, the market just turned. No one can predict the market.
It never worked. Things never work out for me.
Just don't work out that way for me, And it's like, oh man, somebody told me to put this in. It's supposed to go up, right? So what are you starting to get? You're starting to get anger. Yeah. You felt a little bit entitled, like, hey, if I put this money in because XYZ, I've worked really hard for it. This person told me I had a hot stock tip, and this company's been growing for 12 quarters straight. It was a sure thing. I can't believe it didn't work out. Like these are the types of things that are really down to timing. And that I hope people are grasping why this is so key, because you can walk around thinking you have bad luck and you're just really unaware of timing, right? It makes all the difference. You can call somebody on a Friday when they're having a terrible time and get rejected. Call the same person, do the exact same thing on a Monday when they're feeling fresh and get a completely different result.
Absolutely. And then the last hallmark of bad timing is preparation, right? It's a lack of preparation. If you're not prepared for the moment, you have to prepare for the moment of your lifetime before that moment.
Yes.
Right. This is one of the things that's like been essential to my life. Something we've talked about on the podcast is like, you don't know when that pickle is coming, and you have a lot of pickles in your life. So back to baseball. We're not a baseball podcast. We're making a couple baseball analogies today. Pickle, it's the rundown, right? You're stuck between third base and home, and you got two fieldsmen trying to get you out, right? And you have to make the most of this opportunity, right? That is the pickle. And you don't know when the pickles are coming in life, or when you're going to be stuck in between two bad situations. Yeah. You have to be prepared for that before you get there.
Right. And there's definitely living prepared. And then if you want to start getting into specific, actually, we will get into the specifics of what preparation looks like, because preparation is different for depending on what area of life you're looking at. But there's definitely a way to live prepared for sure. So everybody out there, I hope you're getting a little bit more understanding of why timing is important. Think about a time when you got your timing right, or you got your timing wrong. And the amazing thing is if you get your timing right, you can actually get some other things wrong. I think about my proposal to my wife, I got the timing dead spot on right. My wife said yes. The actual execution and technique of the proposal were not necessarily as great. I proposed to my wife on Oceanside Beach in San Diego. I thought it'd be a great idea to send her off looking for a picnic spot. I got her a massage in the morning. I got the picnic ready. We went to the beach. I was going to write, "Will you marry me?" in the sand. And when she came back from looking for a picnic spot, I was like, "Oh, go look down there." I quickly went and set up, got the ring out my pocket. I was ready to go. Start writing, "Will you marry me?" in the sand. And I'm like, I don't know if she's going to be able to see this. And as I was thinking that,
coming in.
Well, no, I was up on the dry sand, dude. I overlooked a very crucial detail. So as I'm sitting there going, I don't know if she's going to be able to see this, a surfer literally walks right through the middle of what I had written. And so I sat there on my knees, trying to figure it out. And Rena comes back to me and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Can you read that?" And she's like, "Read what?" And I'm like, "Well, it says, 'Will you marry me?'" And that was how my proposal went. So, I had envisioned that she would read it on the sand and we'd have that moment. And instead I had a surfer just trounce out what I'd written.
It's definitely a Shuby move.
Whatever,
you should have thought that through.
Garrett told me his proposal story before, and the angels showed up on time with Tinkerbell and Peter Pan was there. It's just ridiculous how well planned.
I think I just had a little bit more preparation than you did.
Whatever, man. The point is that timing matters, and we both got married. So in the end,
that's a win.
In the end, we both won. I'll take it.
All right, let's take this a little bit further.
Okay, so we're going to apply this to physical, financial, and social. Here is a big prerequisite, guys. Before you look at any opportunity, here's the question to ask yourself: what's my mission? And the reason I say that, there's some opportunities that you should not even, it's not even a matter of is the timing right. You just full stop shouldn't even go after them, because if you have a clear mission for your life, there's opportures everywhere.
Yeah, you got to know your overarching mission with your life, and don't and this is the thing, baseball, it's hard, but baseball is simple. You have a very simple situation. You got one pitcher, one ball, one hitter, right? But in life, What happens is we got balls coming at us all the time.
For sure.
And you have to be able to determine which ones you want to hit. And there are some balls that will keep you like, I could really crush that ball. And swinging at that ball will make you strike out on your mission.
Yeah. You say it all the time that the fastest way to get thrown off track is to catch a tailwind and just change direction. And that's what will happen. People do this all the time with money. Oh, I could make a lot of money here. Well, what's your mission? Is your mission in life to just make as much?
You think you're going to make a lot of money. You make a good amount your first year. And then you're like, well, we're already in. We got this set up. 7 years later, why am I here?
Yeah, what happened? Well, you diverted course 7 years ago chasing money, and now you can't even remember where you started.
Yeah.
And so that's a really key thing. So first thing, what's my mission? So assuming now that's something that you want to do, and like I said, we're looking at physical, financial, and social, so we'll keep it locked within those things.
So those are the three like overarching categories we're going to look at, and we're going to break time. Like timing can sound like a really complicated thing to people. It's like, man, how do I make this happen? Like some people think they're just bad at timing the same way that they have bad luck.
Yes.
Right. And so what we're going to try to do here for everyone is break timing down into 3 different components or 3 different skill sets. And those are the ability to anticipate, the ability to adapt, and the ability to accelerate.
Yeah, I love that. Now, real quick, G, because we haven't quoted him in a while. Tony Robbins, our man, says that losers react and winners anticipate.
Yes.
And that is a great quote. So the very first thing he talks about with anticipation, whenever he's talking about preparation, is we broke it down into preparation.
Yeah, this is for anticipate, right?
Yes.
This is the pieces of anticipation. This is, and I also want to connect this to baseball, right? And just because I think it's the most simple physical, it's one of the sports that timing is such a big part of.
Yeah.
And there's very clear phases in baseball. So just like we have anticipate, adaptation, and acceleration, anticipation is like anticipation is practice, anticipation is warm-ups, anticipation is standing in the batter's box, getting focused, and anticipation is everything up until like you're standing there right at the plate. All right. And then adaptation. This is the phase of reading the pitch. The ball is leaving the pitcher's hand, and I got to determine, am I going to hit this ball? And then acceleration, this is the swing, right? So 3 different phases here. I want you to, we're going to connect the physical, the tangible to the intangible here. So we've got the setup, we've got read the pitch, we've got the swing, we've got anticipation, adaptation, and acceleration. And so now we're going to dive into anticipation.
Thank you. So I hope you guys grasp that. So anticipate is when we're stepping in the batter's box, right? This is right before the pitch comes. And what we broke it down into, and why I referenced that Tony Robbins swing, or that quote from Tony Robbins, is the 3 parts of anticipation is preparation, see opportunity, and define. Now that is a really interesting point for each of the physical ones. Did you want to focus on baseball for the physical, G? Of how we would
but we'll use we've kind of already talked about it a little bit, so we'll go through this one quickly, and then we'll get to the financial and the social. But preparation for baseball, right? This is practice. This is your warm-ups. This is everything you're doing in getting ready for a swing, right? And getting like, okay, these are the things that I need to do to be ready for my moment when like you're anticipating the moment. I don't know when the moment's coming, right? And as a baseball player, you're going to know somewhat when the moment's coming, but more so on the intangible side of life, we don't always know when the moment's coming, but I'm preparing for the moment, right? And then see opportunity, right? Okay, like again, anticipate, like we've got a game tomorrow. I have to do everything I can to be ready for the game. And again, this is just the physical, right? And this will make more sense as we connect it in the financial and the social, but I'm getting ready for the game. And then the last one is define success.
Yes.
Right? Like what is a hit? A hit is not just the ball hitting the bat, right? A hit is not getting out, right? A hit is getting a home run's getting it over the fence. A hit is getting on base before the fielders get you out. So you've got to define success clearly for what your situation is. That's everything that happens before you get up to the moment to read the pitch.
Yeah. Now that sounds really simple in baseball because it is, but remember,
it's still a lot of steps just for something as simple as baseball.
It is, and I could go into a little bit more of the detailed approach because I know baseball a little bit more. But for the sake of time, we're not going to go into all the little nuances.
What a lot of people do with like their timing in life on like the intangible side is like they just find themselves in a batter's box and someone throws them a baseball bat really quick and whoosh, comes a pitch.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, you weren't ready for this.
Right.
You thought you just stumble into the box and swing, and you weren't even watching the pitcher as he's winding up.
Yeah.
Right. These are again, this is so timing is something that seems really complicated. And it's like, man, I just don't have it. I just don't have timing. Well, if you break it down to all the simple components, just like we talk about on this podcast all the time, every complicated problem is just a bunch of simple problems put together. We're breaking it down to a lot of really simple things that when you put this together, you'll understand the complicated topic of timing.
Yeah. Now for adaptation, which is the second stage, we have equanimity, one of Garrett's favorite things to talk about, patience, and flexibility. Now remember, this is pitch in the air, right? Now, I happen to work with some professional baseball players.
Yeah, you get to. I mean, who is it that you work with on the professional side?
A number of guys, but there's a player named Bobby Witt Jr. who's actually who's from Colleyville,
right,
Texas.
But who are the companies that you work with?
G-Form, Rawlings. Some of the
Rawlings, no big deal.
No big deal. Slightly, whatever, man. I'm not trying to flex. That's one of the companies I work with, so I get to be around professional baseball players. Bobby was the one I was talking to because he's one of the best young players in baseball. I talked to him about his approach in the box, and what he says is he sits fastball and he adapts to everything else. That was his exact words. So think about that.
So he's expecting a fastball.
Yes.
So he can, I'm planning to hit the fastball. I'm always planning to hit the fastball.
But fastball. Yeah. And then if something comes out, breaking ball, off speed, then you adjust to it, right?
So he'll adjust to that, but he's not going to plan for a curveball and then adapt
just
to
get blown away. Because that's when you do truly look foolish. You swing and the ball's already in the batter and the catcher's glove.
So equanimity in adaptation, in the adaptation portion, like this is something you need to bring to every situation in your life that requires timing, and many situations require timing. Equanimity is stillness of mind. It's the ability to be undisturbed, right? That baseball player's got a lot going through his head. He's got the crowd roaring for him and cheering. He's got boos going on.
Yeah.
And now we're in a championship series, and this game really matters. I'm the second. We got 2 outs. I've got 2 strikes. You can let all these things ruffle your feathers and get you disturbed, but you need to set all of that aside and just be in the moment and focus on the moment. That's equanimity.
Yeah, and I mean, you're thinking very high level there, Jay. I'm thinking about the kid who's sitting there and he's scared. He's scared that he's going to get hit by a pitch. And so every time the ball comes even remotely inside, he just dives out of the way, even though it's still over the plate. Yeah. So, I mean, that's fear robbing you right there. The very last part, of course, is now that you've recognized the moment, you've got your pitch, it's time to get after it, G. So acceleration.
Hold on. Hold on. I don't want to go there.
Escape flexibility?
We've got patience and flexibility.
Yes.
We get patience.
Yeah.
All good. So in the adaptation portion, so we have stillness of mind. We're calm in the batter's box. But now we have to, and we know the moment is coming. Like we're here, we're in the batter's box, pitcher's about to throw, but we have to wait for the moment. This is patience. Again, this can seem like oversimplification, and that's the point of it, right? Like when we get to the end of this and we challenge you, we're going to talk about like if you're struggling with timing in your life, we just broke it down to all the simple pieces, right? Okay, which area am I struggling in? Patience is a key component of being able to read that pitch. You've got to read it, and you've got to wait until the right moment. Once you're reading that pitch, you see the speed that it's moving at. You're able now. I know now that I've read the pitch, I know when it's going to be here on the plate, right? But it takes patience, especially when you get the soft toss, right? And then lastly, of adaptation is flexibility, and this is what you talked about with the guy that you work with, right? He's expecting a fastball, but he'll flex to something else,
right? Now, if you're like, okay, guys, I get it. You're really oversimplifying things. We're doing this on purpose because the baseball one is a very easy one to see and understand. Other things in your life that, like Garrett said, aren't so clearly defined with rules and physical touch points are a lot harder. So we want to make sure that you grasp this. So the very last thing, like we said, now it's time to actually get after it. You recognize your pitch, acceleration. Now, the way that we went through acceleration was we said you have to define early and late.
Yep.
Right. Then
this is a big one for acceleration, right? Like, because once you know the window, again, talking about baseball for a second, it's a narrow window, but there is a window of time which that ball needs to be struck.
Yes.
You have to know this is for all timing, right? So catch everything we're talking about here in the physical, because we're going to connect it to the other ones. You have to understand this is when too early is. I will swing and the ball will not hit the bat and the ball is still coming at the plate. You have to define when late is. The ball has already crossed the plate, like it's too late to swing. You have to know when is early and when is late. And once you're in that window, you have to give it everything that you have.
Right.
And that's, again, very simple for baseball. It's going to make more sense and connect even harder when we get to some of the other points.
Yeah, for sure. And, this is really down to some of the technical aspects of baseball, but like, don't decelerate. You want to drive through the ball.
Yeah, especially for golf. Like golf is like you never decelerate hitting into the ball, and you're not going to decelerate coming into the baseball, right? Just even if you're a little bit early, you've got to accelerate into that ball.
Yeah.
You can like you're getting ready to swing, and then when it's the moment, I know I'm no longer too early. You have to swing as hard as you can.
Right. And you're going to go through it. And then that's where technique comes into play. Like in baseball, very easy to understand. When we get into financial and social, there's some different things that fall into technique. But like, so in baseball, foot down, right? Like driving through the ball, extending your arms,
exactly.
Like, not breaking your hands. There's all these different things that guys go through.
What about pointing up into the bleachers? Is that a part of the technique?
Yeah, dude, bat flip, definitely big time. I think get an extra 10 feet on every hit if you flip the bat. So yeah, big time on that. All right, G. So really easy to understand about baseball, and I'm glad we got to use a baseball analogy because it just, I love it. But let's go into financial.
Yep.
Okay, so financial could be starting a business. It could be making an investment.
Right.
I mean, it could be lending someone money. There's so many things, or making a purchase. There's so many different things that you could put this in. Is there any specific one that you want to tailor our application towards?
No, I think we'll keep it. I think it's broad enough to the category where we can talk about both making an investment and starting a business.
Okay.
Right. In both situations, you have to prepare for this opportunity that's coming. Right. And you got to see an opportunity, right? This is an opportunity to start a business. This is an opportunity to make an investment, and you need to prepare for that. You're going to prepare for an investment by studying your investment, learning everything you can to make sure that you select the right one. For starting a business, gosh, you got a lot of preparation to do.
Yeah,
we got other podcasts to talk about that, but you can't just stroll into it. Like
Correct.
You have to be ready for the moment when the moment comes, and you have to see the opportunity that you want to take. You can't swing at every ball. You have to choose one.
Yeah.
Right. Like, well, I'm just preparing generally for investments. I'm just preparing generally for business. That does not work. This is my preparation for this investment. This is my preparation for this business. And then you have to define success.
Yes.
Right. And more specifically, like when you're getting into like a financial situation, like if you're making an investment, you have to plan your entry. Like these are financial terms. You have to plan, this is my entry into this investment. I'm going to see these criteria, and this is when my dollars go in. Right. And you also have to define your exit.
Yeah.
Right. Both for good or for bad. Because if you're like, and this kills people in investments, where like, I'll just put it in and it's going up and I don't want to sell myself short. It could just keep going up for forever. Like infinity is not your investment opportunity. Right. You have to define success. So you plan your entry and you plan your exit. That's defining success. Same in a business, right? Like you can have a business like, hey, I want this to be a family business, but you also have to understand what you like. This is what success looks like for us. And also this is defining my exit. Like you should, if you have your business ready to sell all the time, your business is in great shape.
Right.
If you couldn't take your business to a broker right now and sell it, you got work to do.
Mm-hmm. That's probably gonna be a challenge for a lot of people, man. Okay, so I hope that you guys are seeing that. So adaptation now, G. So now
we don't have the lesson of equanimity applies across the board in every situation that we're in. You cannot let things disturb you. Whatever is going on, you need to be able to see clearly. We've done a whole podcast on equanimity, and we're just bringing it in here. This is one of the lessons, one of the many lessons, one of the many pieces of timing is equanimity. So whatever episode equanimity is, I would go back to that one.
Yeah, I don't have that one handy. But just to say, so because we've already anticipated, we've done the pattern recognition part, we've prepared, whether it's for an investment or a business, that is a massive step because at this point, you've now identified, if you've seen an opportunity as part of your preparation, you've now identified what needs to happen for it to be the right time for you to get in because you can't just be like, oh, I've just got to throw this thing together. Like you will fail.
Patience is so important in a business. And especially in investment, like, oh, I got money, I'm ready to invest. And like people who do that's newbie investment style. Like you'll make a hard mistake and you won't do that again. Like, oh, I'm ready to invest. And you just like, I got to put it in something.
Yeah.
No, like just because you're ready, this is like, just because the batter's ready doesn't mean the pitcher's ready. It's not the batter's ball, it's the pitcher's ball. You have to hit the pitcher's ball, right? And as an investor, you have to hit the investment opportunity, not just when you're ready as an investor.
Right. Or if you're in business, your who's are going to be more important than your what's.
Absolutely.
So you need to have patience. I mean, you're actually really good at this, G, as sticking to your standards. You won't do things if it's not to the right standard. You're happy to be patient. And I've learned that from you because that's a really valuable tool to have to be like, you know what? Everything else is looking right, and the timing's right. I think because the market's there, but I don't have the right people. Don't go in. right? Like that is truly when you can be when you
Absolutely.
can be patient. And then the last thing that we have for adaptation is flexibility.
Yep.
And I think you said something about the itinerary is not the mission,
Yeah,
right?
so this goes back, the flexibility portion goes back to understanding what the mission is.
Yes.
This was a big lesson for me from the SEAL teams of, you have a mission, which you have we get a warning order, it's a clear objective, make this happen, right? And then we'll have this whole mission plan. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do it at this time. These people are going to be with these people. And it's really easy to get locked into that's the mission.
Yes.
To do everything that you planned. Mm-hmm. And it's not.
Right.
That mission plan was all of our preparation, but we've also been trained with the ability to be flexible, to adapt on the fly, to when the situation changes, we'll change.
Right.
And so the mission plan is not the mission. And so
Right.
this is, you want to be very flexible to this is what I want to accomplish. And I may not accomplish it the way that I intended, but now that things have changed, I'm open to change so that I can still meet the mission. You're not going to change the mission on the battlefield, but you can change the mission plan.
Yeah. And a great example would be like if you were somebody that was looking to do something and then suddenly COVID hits, now you've got to adapt to be able to be flexible to provide an online service or a remote service or whatever it may be. And that may need to be added into your plan that wasn't there original. So just think about for those that may want to start a business.
You're rigid to mission objective. You are flexible to the plan.
Yeah. Really, really catch that. Can you say that again, G?
You are rigid to the mission objective and you are flexible to the plan.
That's good, man. And then now the moment is here, G. It's time to accelerate on my financial decision. And the first thing is I've got to define early and late.
Same as before. Define when is too early to invest, when is too late to invest. I would tell you for starting a business, it is never too early, right? Things have to be right in your life for you to be ready, because what you don't want to do is get into business and drag down your family, drag down your relationships, right? You can do some major out of order damage in that way.
That's good. Okay. So you've defined too early or too late. And one of the things that's interesting in there is you were very specific about saying too early or too late, because people, best time is not something you'll know until after it's already gone by, right? And like if you're just sitting there waiting for the best time, you're going to be waiting forever.
This is people, they're always waiting for the perfect time.
Right.
You I say this about, just jokingly, but I say this about like getting tattoos. Like if you're waiting till you feel 100% about getting a tattoo, you're never going to feel 100% about it. You're going to feel 100% about anything. But you need, like I said to Nick, I never felt 100% about a tattoo. Felt about 85% about it, bet that it was the right decision, but then I made the decision 100%.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the don't decelerate portion, right? Like I'm 80% sure this is the right time to get into business. This is the right time to make the investment. And I'm going to 100% put myself into it.
Right.
Right. And that's where people will match their level of effort to their level of assurance. Right. And that is a recipe for failure.
Yeah.
That's I'm good. 70% sure about it. So I'm a 70% try. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's once you make the decision, go all in.
Right. And that's really where it has to be a non-decision at that point, right? Because if you're wishy-washy at that point, to what you just said, nobody's going to consciously go, I'm not really sure, so I'm going to do like a 70% effort. What they would do is go, it didn't work out. I knew it. I should have listened. I had this intuition and I ignored it. No, you listened to the intuition so much that you didn't give it everything you got.
One of the big lessons I learned from the SEAL teams on making mistakes and things like that in close quarters clearance, there's so much tactics and technique that we have. And say like I'm coming up to a corner and tactics dictate that I should go right. Like, I'm coming to this corner. There's a lot of things. I won't paint the whole picture, whether it's, open doors or closed doors or windows or anything like that. But tactics have dictated that I should turn right here. And when I start, I take half of a step right and I'm like, oh no, I was actually supposed to go left. And what they teach us is once you're wrong, stay wrong, right? If you half step right and you realize you're supposed to go left, just go right. Because what my team is also trained to read and react, right? Well, we thought Garrett was going to go left, but he went right. So now I'm going left. He went right, so I'm going to go left. It was supposed to be Garrett go left and we'll go right, but he didn't do that. So we're just going to read and react. What'll mess the team up even worse than me making one mistake is me turning one mistake into two mistakes. Well, I half stepped right, so now my team's going left. And then, actually, I'm supposed to go left, so I'll go left. And they were going left. Now they're going right. It just turns into a gaggle, right? So once you make a wrong decision, like finish the step. I'm not saying just like be wrong for forever, but finish the step.
Right. No, that's good, man. That's a good analogy. And then the very last one for acceleration is technique.
Yeah.
And if you talk about there's investment techniques, there's ways for starting a business.
There are business techniques. There are investment techniques to where an amateur is like, man, I'm going to lose in this situation. But a professional knows like, well, you could make this options play, which is a multifaceted strategy. There's like ways to make a win out of something, right? To increase your chances of having good timing. This is one of the elements of good timing. If you only have one simple technique, or you only have basic technique, you're missing a lot of the other skills. The timing that you have to hit is a lot narrower.
Yeah.
Right. Versus if you have great technique, you can great baseball guys who can hit crazy balls. Right. Some of that is because of their technique. They have good timing, but they also have great techniques, which allows them it gives more leniency to making a hit.
Yeah, big time. And that, and when you're starting a business, that could be reducing the risk, finding ways to reduce your risk, the way that you incorporate. There's all sorts of things. If it's making a big financial purchase, it's the way that you, how you go about finding what you're going to buy. Like the person that you work with.
If you don't have great sales technique, right? Like I only know how to sell in this one way.
Yeah.
Like you've narrowed your chances of success.
Yeah, big time. All right, G, very last one is social. Now, social could be many things.
So just like, let's think about two different, and we'll probably like play both situations at the same time here in social. Let's talk about like trying to discuss a difficult situation with your spouse to bring up a difficult topic. We'll talk about that from like a relational social standpoint. And from a professional standpoint, let's talk about like trying to get a raise. Like I'm going to ask for a raise.
Yeah. Now you may think that the raise is financial, but we're going to show you that is actually a very social situation.
It's extremely social.
It does have financial impacts, but it's definitely social.
Because it's about human interaction. It's about you guys working together. It's not just about like, hey, I deserve the money. So let's jump back into it. So from a social standpoint and to the anticipation part of the timing technique, again, we have preparation. You have to prepare for this moment.
Yeah.
Right? Like, don't just stumble into the batter's box and like, hey, I wanted to tell you, I didn't like what you did the other day.
Right. That's a great way to get in a fight.
Yeah. Or like, I'm walking out the door. I got to be somewhere, but you really pissed me off when you did this.
We'll talk about this tomorrow. That's a real good way.
Yeah, it's a lack of preparation for the moment. And it's time, like you want to raise. It's right. Like maybe you should probably have thought about this. Don't just be like in the moment, like, you know what? I think it's time for me to get a raise. And it comes out of your mouth as you're thinking about it. That's you wasted your shot.
You know what all that is, G? That is a lack of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Is what that is.
For sure.
And that's a big part of the preparation on these things. You need to be able to understand. Remember we talked about it. Opportunity is when motivations align. You need to understand what the person that you are looking to have this conversation with is experiencing in the moment, right? Because I mean, emotions, I think you talked about equanimity. One of the great things is it helps you to see what's really there. Yep. And if you have a strong emotional going on and strong emotions, it's like putting a lens on. So like if I have the red lens on, guess what? Everything looks angry. Like that's not a time to be like, hey, you want to give me a raise? Or hey, we need to have a real important conversation.
Absolutely.
But people breeze past this all the time. And they wouldn't think of it as a lack of preparation. But truly that is part of the preparation is understand, okay, who am I talking to? What are they going through right now? That's a big prep.
Yeah, when you're looking through a scope, everything looks like a target. When you're looking through an emotional lens, when you're looking through your own emotional lens, everything is something that's about how it affects you.
Right. Yeah. So now, as part of this, when you're seeing opportunity, so at this point, you're looking for what the desired outcome would be, and also the timing of this?
Right. All of these things, they're not necessarily in order, but they're all happening as a piece of anticipation. It's preparation, see opportunity, define success.
Right.
Right. So if I'm trying to get a raise, that's my defined success.
Yeah.
That I could have a great conversation. It's not just to get the raise and my boss is mad at me. My definition of success is get the raise and my boss is like, I'm glad I gave you that.
Yeah.
Right. Like I want both of those things to happen. If I want to, like, my success for me in having a difficult conversation with my spouse isn't just that I got to say what I wanted to say, right? It's that we could both grow from the situation and leave the situation and leave the conversation feeling better about each other and better about the future, right? That's defining success. So now that I know what a hit is, right? It's not just the ball hitting the bat. It's that, success for me is a home run. Success for me is getting on base. I've defined what success is. And now I'm going to look for the opportunity. I'm going to look for the conditions that will make that happen. And that's a part of my preparation is to understand, okay, what would it take for this to happen? When is this situation going to happen? When are some good times for me to present this conversation, right? That's all a part of my preparation. It's also your preparation in that the same way that a baseball player is going to do workouts and things like that to prepare for the conversation. This isn't about manipulation. This is about, I'm going to prepare for my opportunity, right? Like if you want a raise, part of you preparing for that raise is work for it, right? Do the preparation to earn the raise. If you want to have a difficult conversation with your spouse, like don't, spend the previous week doing a bunch of stuff to make your wife not trust you.
Yeah.
Right.
Seriously.
Like do the work, do the preparation to help bring this opportunity to happen. Right.
Yeah.
If you want to hit a home run, the first thing you got to do is be able to earn your way to the plate.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we're kind of being assumptive about, but that we've said in every single one of these, is there is an awareness of what's at play. If you are, before you can even talk about timing, you actually have to understand the game that you're playing. We said that earlier on, but there is definitely an understanding of the principles at play that govern the outcomes that you're seeking to bring about. So if you've defined success, like you can't just go into something you don't know anything about, like, oh, my timing was wrong. Well, no, I mean, your timing may have been wrong, but you had every other part of this wrong as well, because you didn't understand the rules of the game that you're playing.
Absolutely.
If I show up to baseball with, a football helmet on and no bat, like, I'm never going to be successful. And we laugh at that, but like a lot of people do that in life. Yeah. Oh man, I'm just so unlucky. No, you didn't.
You showed up at the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong gear.
Yeah, you had literally none of this right. Yeah, you showed up trying to do something that you didn't spend any time in the prep. So I think that's a big part of the prep, is understanding the principles and components at play. So now we're having this tough conversation, or we're trying to get a raise. Our adaptation, equanimity, patience, and flexibility.
Absolutely. So again, we don't need to belabor the equanimity portion, because
Right.
it is the same and it applies in every category of having this conversation with my wife, of trying to ask for a raise. Like you need to not, like your emotions can help give you information and they tell you about you, but you don't need to give them to everybody else.
Right. Yeah, 100%. So
go ahead.
No, I was going to say this looks like, and this is you're waiting for the right moment, right?
Yeah.
Like you've done your prep, you've identified. You can't get, once again, what's the hallmark of bad timing, G? It's about you.
Yep.
I just need to get this out, is going to lead to a very interesting conversation, right?
Yeah.
And that's,
oh man. Yeah. I don't think any good spouse conversations start with, I just need to get this out.
Yeah. Or to your boss. Can you imagine
Right?
that?
Because what's the win? The win is not that you got to say
Right.
what you wanted to say.
Exactly.
The win is not getting to ask for a raise. The win
Right.
is getting the raise.
Yes.
The win is having the healthy conversation, right? So you have to wait for that right moment. And when the moment comes, when that pitch is in the air, you can't get all flustered by the
Right.
crowd. You can't get upset or taken down by people booing you, or thinking about like, man, there's 2 outs and 2 strikes. I could blow this, right? All this lack of equanimity, right? You have to focus on the moment.
All right, so the moment's here, G. I'm ready to accelerate. I've got to define early and late. Don't decelerate, and focus on my technique. What's that look like socially?
Yeah, in having these difficult conversations, right? You got to understand, like, what is, like, for your win, this conversation with your wife, for your win with this conversation with your boss, right? Defining early and late is more so about, like, it's not the timing of a baseball, but it's the timing of that situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when's the right time, like, of the day for my boss?
Yes, that's
When's
good.
the right time of the week for my boss? When's the right time of the month for my boss? Is, what's recently happened at work? Am I on it? Am I on a good trajectory where I could ask for this? Have I done the things that I've been asked to do, right? Am I doing everything? Like, check all of these boxes. I can't think of a reason why this is a wrong moment. Right.
That's good.
And now it's the right time. There's not really necessarily a late in that situation, other than, like, maybe it's been the right time for you to ask for a raise, and your boss is like, man, figured this guy would ask me for a raise a year ago. He's been doing everything and he just hadn't asked, right? And they're not going to give it to you probably until you ask. Or if you don't ask for it, they're going to give you that 3% annual raise, right? To just keep you happy, right? So that would be the late in that situation. And then bringing this to, like, a conversation with your spouse, the early and late is, again, waiting, like, okay, when's the right time of the day? Like, okay, let's wait till if we have a really difficult conversation, let's wait till the kids are down. Let's wait till we don't have any distractions. Let's wait till we can put the phone down. Let's have some quality time together. One of the things that I like to do is, like, I don't, like, kick the door open. I knock. Like, hey, I think it's a good time to knock, but then I'm going to knock them and say, hey, I'd like to talk about, like, I'd like to give you some feedback, or I'd like to, talk about something that's like difficult. Is this a good time to talk about that?
Yeah.
And I'm asking that genuinely and honestly. Like if she says no, I'm like, all right, we'll talk about it later. Like I'm totally okay with that.
I can imagine Lindsay loves when you come in and say, hey, I want to give you some feedback,
Well, I try to be as like gentle as I can in that too. Like I'm going to do whatever I got to do to like, I'm not like a kind and gentle person. That's not like my natural nature, but I'll do whatever I can to help make this a good conversation and present it as best I can. I think it's a good time. I've waited for the moment.
Right.
I think all the conditions are right. I can't think of any reason why the conditions are wrong. And then I'm going to present it as best that I can.
Right. And what that shows to me is it shows some emotional intelligence and some humility, right, in your approach, that it's not about you, that you're going to present things in the absolute best way.
I don't want you to just hear what I have to say. I want this to get better for both of us, and I've got to do my part for this to get better too. And late in that situation is just waiting too long.
Right.
Right. Like, well, I could have, but now I don't want to. And some of that's the deceleration too. Like, man, that was my moment. I'm not sure. Is it still my moment?
With your wife, what that would look like is you just ignore it, and then you bring it up a week later, and she's like, I can't believe you're bringing this up now.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like that would be a massive mistake, because at that point, I don't even know if you could.
And people and based on different like temperaments and personalities, people have like some different cadencies and frequencies in their relationship. Some people like to talk about stuff like, within the hour. Some people like to talk about stuff within the day. Some people like to talk, within a week is appropriate for some people. That's not really like, I like to address things a little bit quicker than that. But you and your spouse are going to have like a cadency and a frequency that you're willing to deal with stuff on.
Yeah. And you'll notice that there's not like a hard, fast rule. How these things look, I mean, we've summed it up as technique, but like technique in a social situation is how you articulate. It's how you present it.
Exactly what it is. Just like the baseball player, he's like, I know this pitcher. I've studied him.
Right.
I know how he throws.
Yes.
I know what his slider looks like.
Yeah.
I know what his fastball looks like. I've prepared for this moment. You know your spouse. You know when they're ready. You know when they're not ready. You know when the worst time, because even if you're not smart enough to anticipate it, you've learned by experience.
Yeah.
This is what a bad time to present looks like.
Yeah, exactly. So anything else to add on the social setting?
No, I think that about covers it.
Yeah. So I hope you guys are realizing, I was thinking about this while we were talking about it. Like I said, there isn't a hard, fast rule, but similar to last week's troubleshooting, the fact that you can now have a template and a process, a lot of this is really just down to stopping and thinking and being aware of the different components that are at play and having an approach. Because, the second one of the things that we said was important in adaptation is flexibility. It's not like you end the adaptation portion. You're like, okay, now it's all about accelerate. Like, you still need to remain flexible.
It's a lot of micro components. If we brought like a kinesiologist in here or some neurophysicist in here, he could break down like 1,000 topics of like, this is how a baseball player hits a ball. And he's going to talk about the eye receptors and the neuron firing and the muscle and the fast twitch and the non-hesitate. Like, he's going to talk about all these things, and it can be more complex than it is. And we're not trying to make this overly complex. We're trying to give you the simple things, because we're going to land this with the challenge here. Like, this is my challenge to people, that the next time you feel like you're just striking out, it's like, why am I striking out? Don't call it bad luck. Right? Assess your technique. Look, am I doing the things in the right order? Am I using a lot of the things that we've talked about on this podcast before? If I feel like I'm doing all of those things and I just can't seem to hit the ball, maybe I've got a timing problem.
Yeah.
And if you've got a timing problem, listen to this podcast again, come back to this next time you have a timing problem, and see if one of these really simple things that are a little bit easier to understand, like the concept of patience, like the concept of defining success, if one of these really simple things is going to remind you like, oh, yeah, that's why my timing sucks.